Hello everyone, this is in continuation with my previous video wherein I talked about the structure of language, and I explained what is phonetics, what is phonology, what is morphology, what is syntax, what is semantics, and what is pragmatics. At that time I remember that I told you that both phonetics and phonology are studies of speech sounds. And then the question arises, if it is the same, then if it is a study of if both are studies of speech sounds, then why differentiate? The reason is that phonetics is the study of one aspect of speech sounds and phonology is the study of another aspect of speech sounds. But however, today I am not going to concentrate on phonology. That will be in my next lecture. Today I want to concentrate only on phonetics. So what is phonetics? I am sure you have already learned that phonetics is the study of speech sounds. What aspects? Now I will tell you what aspects. Phonetics is the study of what? Articulation, description, classification, perception, and acoustic properties of speech sounds. So it's the study of articulation. So you have already learned what is articulation. That is to say, how speech sounds are articulated. That is to say, how we human beings produce speech sounds. What mechanism is involved? There are three systems which are involved in the production of speech sounds: respiratory system, phonatory system, and articulatory system. So the respiratory system consists of the lungs and the pipes, that is to say the windpipe, and then the larynx, on top of which the vocal cords are located. Okay, so the larynx and the vocal cords, they constitute the phonatory system. The lungs and the windpipe constitute the respiratory system, and finally the mouth, the articulatory system, where actual articulation happens. So the mouth. So the mouth means the tongue, the teeth, the palate, the lips, etc. So these are the three systems involved in the articulation of speech sounds. Then comes description. So what is description? We need to describe speech sounds. Now, for example, when I utter the word, let us say pin, and let me take the first sound, for example, p. Now we can describe p based on how it is articulated. So what is the description of p? It's a bilabial sound. I'm sure you have already come to know, because you are now in second semester and you will have studied a lot of things in your speech paper. So you know what is a bilabial sound. So p is a bilabial sound. Then what else? P is a voiceless sound. So what is meant by voiceless? That is to say, when p is articulated, the vocal cords are not in vibrating position. They are wide apart, and the air from the lungs flows through that passage. That is to say, between the two vocal cords. So that is therefore it is a voiceless sound. Pa is a voiceless, bilabial, and then next stop. Stop means what? When you articulate a sound by closing the, making a closure with the articulators and then produce the sound, it is called a stop. For example, just look at my lips. I'm pronouncing the sound p. P. What did I do? I first brought my lips together, they touch each other, and then they make a firm closure. Then suddenly what I do, I release the air which is compressed behind my lips. So it's a stop. Now there are some other sounds which are not stops. For example, there are fricatives. If I pronounce the word fin, F-I-N, fin, so how is it produced? I don't make any closure. There is a gap between my upper teeth and the lower lip. So when the air flows through this narrow constriction, then then what happens? There is turbulence in the air. So there is some friction noise. And since this sound is produced with friction, it is called a fricative. Okay. Now coming to description of pa is a voiceless bilabial stop. That is its description. If you want me to describe fa, I will say that fa is a voiceless labiodental fricative. So that is the description of fa. So in phonetics, we study not only about the articulation of speech sounds, we also study about the description of the speech sounds. Okay. Then next comes classification. So what is classification? What is the meaning of the word classification? That is to say, you make groups. You are given some, let us say you are given some objects, some 50 objects, and somebody asks you to classify them. What will you do? You will have to make them into groups. You cannot make it a random group. You have to have some kind of criterion. Okay. You have to have some parameters based on which you will make the groups. Okay. So let's say you have some 50 objects in a room. Let us say some bottles, some tumblers, cups, spoons. Then you have some books, magazines, and then you have some decorative items. So totally there are 50 items. So what will you do based on common features? Now let us say spoons, tumblers, plates, cups, they all share something in common. So you will put them in one group. Then books, magazines and newspapers, you will put them in one group. And decorative items, you will put them in one group. So that is how you are going to classify. Similarly, what we do here is that based on some common properties, we classify the speech sounds into different groups. Say for example, stops, fricatives, affricates, etc. Okay, so that is classification. Then perception. So perception is about all this is about, articulation is about how we articulate the sounds, produce the sounds. Description is about how to describe these sounds based on their articulation. Then classification again based on their common features, we put them into groups. Now coming to perception, perception is about how we perceive the speech sounds. We need to perceive. Unless and until we perceive the sounds clearly, we cannot understand what is said. We cannot understand speech. Now for example, we talk in terms of sentences. What are these sentences? Sentences consist of words, but then if you break, you will find that it's a sequence of speech sounds. And because we are able to discriminate the speech sounds, we are able to understand what the speaker says. Supposing there is something wrong goes on at the level of perception, then we will fail to understand the intended meaning. So if I say I have a pen, so I have a pen, you must perceive each sound. Now supposing when I say pen and I don't utter the sound clearly, it sounds like okay, I have a pen, I have a pen. So you will be confused. What is she saying? I have a bin. What is meant by bin? You have to, but I have to play, as it is my responsibility to, the speaker's responsibility to articulate the sounds clearly and so that the listener perceives them correctly, and as a result of which the intended meaning will be understood by the listener. So how we perceive the speech sounds, that is again is a matter of study in phonetics. It is within the scope of phonetics. Then next comes the acoustic properties. So speech sounds have what? They have certain physical properties. So what happens between the mouth of the speaker and the ears of the listener? The sound is uttered, it is released into the air, then it is through the medium of air, it travels through the medium of air, it travels to the human ear. So in between the speaker's mouth and the listener's ears, what is it? In what form is the speech? In what form is it? It is in the form of sound waves. So there are sound waves, and so we can study these sound waves, and we see, when we study them, we see patterns there. So this study of this, that is to say the physical properties of speech sounds, is called acoustic phonetics. Now based on these, we have 4 different branches of phonetics. Okay, 4 different branches of phonetics. I will write here what are these 4 different branches. Phonetics, which has 4 different branches. Sorry, articulatory, auditory, acoustic, and experimental. Okay, so phonetics has 4 different branches. Number 1 is articulatory phonetics. So what is articulatory phonetics? We study in articulatory phonetics how speech sounds are produced, how they are classified, how they are described, etc. Then in auditory phonetics we study about the perceptual aspects of speech sounds, that is to say the mechanism which is involved in the perception of speech sounds. Then comes the acoustic, that is the physical properties of speech sounds. Now the 4th branch is called experimental phonetics. What is experimental phonetics? Experimental, say we can study the speech sounds. They are different. We can study different aspects of speech sounds and how this can be used in how this can be practically used or applied is studied in experimental phonetics. So there are many applications of the findings of phonetics. Now for example, telephony is one. So where they, when they prepare the telephones, make the telephones or even mobiles, they do experiment with the speech sounds, and so they deal with the experimental aspects of speech sounds. And when speech sounds are studied in a lab or laboratory using various instruments, that study is called experimental phonetics. Now, as far as your syllabus is concerned, these three are not included in your syllabus. The syllabus that you have as a part of linguistics, these three are not included. Okay, but auditory phonetics you will find in audiology. Some aspects of perceptual aspects of some perceptual aspects of speech sounds are studied in some audiology paper. So you will find them in some audiology paper. I don't know exactly in which paper. And acoustic, again, you may have to study some aspects in speech science papers. Experimental phonetics, also to some extent in speech science papers, you may have to study. As far as I am concerned, I deal only with articulatory phonetics. So what are the things that we study in articulatory phonetics? We study about the speech mechanism, that is to say, and speech mechanism, airstream mechanisms, how the sounds are articulated, how they are described, and how they are classified. Okay, I'll continue with my lecture I will continue with the rest of the information in my next lecture.